Smile. Hello.
Oh,
He
no.
gave this creepy smile.
I was
Now
doing
everyone's
creepy.
going to see a creepy smile.
Yes, I was told that,
Your serial killer smile.
yeah, that I'm not.
All right. Hello, everyone. Tonight's topic is
a big surprise for me.
it's about, oh, I forgot the topic. It's about how to handle a spook or something like that. Handling a spook.
In the usual way.
I've lost my paper. I don't know where my paper is. I've lost my agenda for tonight. But anyways, yes, we are talking about how to handle a spook. This week's YouTube video was about the safety circle. Do you know what the safety circle is?
Is that when you go in a circle to stay safe?
Yes.
Like a turn on the forehand circle?
No, it's about how, like, if your horse is tense or nervous, that you kind of start on a circle in the middle and then make your arena a little bigger from there, right? So you start on a 20-meter
Very
circle.
small world and then slowly bigger world.
Yeah, and then you go like 10 meters and then circle again, and then
then a half circle with some straight lines, and bigger and bigger and bigger.
So that is the safety circle, which I highly recommend if you get on your horse and they're like super spooky.
Or you feel them super tight, like they're gonna go. When they feel like they're gonna blow, I do that.
So you can do like spiral in and out from the safety circle, all of that. What other tips do you have for handling a spook?
Give one rein and take the other. Do not pull with both reins, because pulling with both reins, the horse will pull against both reins, and you will be out of the tag because the horse is stronger. So you give him the one rein so the horse feels like they can get away from the scary thing, but you keep the other rein so that you're safe.
Yeah, that's a good tip. I think it's also important that, that's kind of like the one rein stop. That's getting your horse to bend. And I think it's always important that you teach that from the ground and that you practice it before your horse starts to spook. Like, you need to be able to make sure you can bend and turn their head before you get into a
run rein stop
situation.
Is that the emergency stop that people teach?
Where you bend their head around?
Yeah, it seems a little. I tend to not. I don't think I would do that.
Yeah. I think
I would just turn them and let some of the steam out of the pot, as Conrad says. Let some of this. Hard stopping, slamming horses is not.
I agree.
I'm not with that.
But it is important that you can bend your horses. Yes. I think that is extremely important. And that's something that I always like to teach from the ground. So for those of you who are in 30 Days to Round, we also I'm doing a groundwork webinar coming up on November 3rd. So save the date for that. The link is above or below. You can RSVP. But when you can bend your horse, then you can stay safe. And you need to practice bending your horse before you have a spook.
Right, so that the horse knows what the aids are. Because training will supplant instinct, but you do have to do the training. And that's the whole trick, is the horse's instinct is to go do whatever. And you go, no, let's do the training. And those of us who get trained know that works.
Yes.
Right. I've been on plenty of horses when I got told to or yelled at, hands down, lean back. And so whenever the horse does something now, I hands down, lean back, because because instinct is for us to get fetal.
And that's not helpful when your horse spooks.
It's very difficult to expose the pink, soft underbelly when they're spooking, but that's where you're the safest. And if you let your instincts take over, you won't do the right thing. And training, if you train it, then in the moment of crisis, boom, the training takes over.
Yeah. And I remember
for the horses as well,
too, because I used to ride a lot of young horses and a lot of colts. And I worked with a cowboy named Larry Fleming, and we did so much groundwork with those young horses. Every day before you got on, you'd bend them and make sure you could bend them and get the hindquarters to yield. And then you get on and you bend them and you get the hindquarters to yield. And I just remember I can still hear his voice when the horse would like go to run off or spook. You just bend them, get their head around, because that is what keeps you safe.
Suppleness is the way of life. Rigidity is the way of death. If you're stiff and inflexible, it's just not going to go well.
Yes. So come to the groundwork webinar. It was funny. I was on our team call yesterday. We asked everyone on my team, we were like, why do you do groundwork? And it was interesting to hear their responses. Like groundwork is great if your horse has had a few days off and they're a little fresh. Groundwork is great to kind of reset things, if something's not working well, if your horse isn't paying attention. Groundwork is great to give you confidence, all of those things. Not that you need any confidence.
I just trust that horses will be like horses.
But you know how horses are.
Yes.
So,
but yeah, it's true. It's spooky fall weather here up in the northern hemisphere. For those down south, it's coming the long days that we want soon because the sun's
it's so dark.
Yeah.
Like it doesn't get light until after 6 and it's already getting dark.
Yeah, and then the time change is going to come. So maybe we should move into the southern hemisphere. We'll just do constant summer.
That would be nice. Except I don't like moving. Okay, other announcements. Very exciting. I got a Starlink for the barn. And so what that means is that we'll be able to do live rides. So for those of you who are in strides, tomorrow, 10:30 a.m. Pacific time, go on the Zoom link and I'm going to be live at the barn. So it's like kind of a mini test. Are you going to be there?
What time?
10:30?
Yes.
So you'll like wave in the background while I'm riding around?
I'll make whose lesson is that going to be?
Maybe Herman will maybe you can have a live lesson.
I'll be teaching Kathy at that time.
All right. Well, you can see Herman in the background teaching Kathy. But I think it's going to be really exciting. We did a test earlier this week. So what this means is that I can do like a live ride at the barn and talk through what I'm doing with a horse. And then you'll be able to answer questions, ask questions. I'll be able to answer them live. So I think it will be really fun.
And maybe they'll be able to hear you over my shouting at my student.
No, you'll be on your best behavior. There will be no shouting.
There'll be a camera. I'll be on my best behavior.
Yes. And Starlink, works pretty well. I'm pretty impressed. It's like this satellite dish, but we haven't.
It's like a small coffee table on an angle.
Yeah, it's like this big, and then we just set it out in the arena and plug it in, and then we have Wi-Fi. It's amazing.
It is pretty cool.
It's trippy. It's crazy. So, and when we did the last one, you could see really well, like the horse moving and the gates, and it wasn't choppy at all. So fingers crossed that it's going to work tomorrow.
Right, because where we are at the barn, we're far away from decent Wi-Fi. So you have to, there's nothing else to do. You got to do something.
Yeah. The other exciting announcement is in Strides. So for those of you who don't know, Strides is our continuity program, and we bring in guest speakers. So last night we had Mike Osensky. Who's Mike Osensky?
He's our judge.
He's our judge. He was at the Olympics.
He's an FEI judge from the United States.
Yeah, so he was the FEI judge at the Olympics. And so Nicole from my team interviewed him. If you're in Strides, watch that interview. It was really, really good. It was really interesting to hear kind of like the judge's side of things and how they have so much empathy for riders and horses, but at the same time, they're judging to a standard. It was interesting to hear. He helps design the tests. So that was interesting.
Oh, I didn't know he was on the test riding committee.
Yeah. He was on the test riding committee. He talked a little bit about how they've made 4th level tests a little bit easier and
more transitional to the pre-St. George, because it was like, why even bother with the 4th level? You just go to pre-St. George because that thing was complicated.
Yeah. Becky says he was amazing. I agree.
Yeah, he's really a nice man. I've known him a long, long time. He's a good man. He takes his things seriously, and he's kind and he cares, and we like that.
The other thing that was interesting was he talked about how much judges are always like trying to educate themselves and improve. And I guess I never really considered that, but he said, especially when there's a panel of judges, which is really helpful. They don't want to be 2% away from any of the other judges. And so if there's a big discrepancy, then there's
a powwow.
Yeah, they talk about it that night. They're like,
if it's 5 percentage points away by rule, they have a powwow.
So I thought that was interesting because I think as riders, we're always trying to improve. And I guess I didn't understand that judges do the same thing. I don't know why that didn't occur to me.
Yeah. Well, and especially now because people know what's good and what's bad. It's not like the emperor's new clothes. And so then if your scores are way out of line and everybody's watching, it's not good. You may not get a job again.
Yes. And he did talk about the importance of accuracy. It was so funny. Nicole's like, what's your pet peeve? And he was like, as a judge, I don't like to have pet peeves, but ride accurately and don't ride 24-meter, 20-meter circles.
And eggs and all sorts of things.
Yes. So there's a good tip for you if you're showing. Ride accurately to make the judge happy.
And it isn't just to make the judge happy, right? When you ride accurately, you get the horse better on the aids, better balanced. There's a reason for it. It's not just to make the judges happy. It's paramount to the training of the horse.
So another topic, because as I go through my week, I always like think about things. And I'm like, oh, we should talk about that on Thursday. So I was at a clinic over the weekend, which I always, I think it's so important to like ride with other people, to get input, to have help. And there was a young rider in the clinic. She's 21 with a young horse, and the clinician was on her horse, riding her horse. And, it was a talented young horse. I'm not sure how old the horse was, but there came to it of this discussion and kind of this debate. I'm curious what you guys think. And I remember feeling in this position as well. Is like you get a nice young horse, right? And you're not.
And you don't have a lot of experience.
Right.
Let's just say, say it like that. Not a lot of experience. And the horse is super talented, not a lot of experience either.
Right. And so you have two choices. Either you give the horse to a Grand Prix rider who has a lot of experience and can like develop the horse quickly, or you try to figure it out and you learn from that horse and you make a lot of mistakes and the horse doesn't reach its full potential. So let me know in the chat what you guys think. So do you ride your horse and maybe it's not going to reach its full potential, or do you give it to the trainer, put it in training with like a top Grand Prix trainer, and get the horse to its full potential? Because it's a hard decision.
Right. And I got offered, here, I'll take Q, I'll train him with the Grand Prix, and then you can have him back. And I was like, but then I'll have nothing to ride.
Yeah.
And so maybe Q didn't do the best Grand Prix, and maybe he didn't get to it as soon as he did, but I rode my horse.
Yeah.
And I just want to ride horses.
Yeah.
So I learned a ton, and Q was great for me.
Yeah. I think it's, I also kind of got the same advice. And I remember, especially with when I was working with Larry. And so my horse Geronimo, he had like a really bad rearing problem. And then Larry took him over and rode him for a few months to fix it. And then I got on and started riding him again. And like in a few weeks, he tried to rear again. But Larry said to me, he's like, you know what? He's your horse to mess up. So learn from it, right? Like mess him up and then learn from it. And I'm
right. It's like your first waffle. I don't know if you ever make waffles, but the first one doesn't come out right because the pan's not right and the heat and the butt. Anyway.
Yeah.
If you make waffles, then the first one's always a little sketch.
Yeah. So I never had a trained Grand Prix horse. I rode a lot of horses. I rode a lot of, when I worked for Mindy, Buck Brandman's sister-in-law, I rode like 16 to 18 horses a day. And they were nothing horses, right? They were like, they didn't even have breed papers. They were just kind of like, I don't want to say trash, but they weren't high caliber horses, but I got to ride a lot. And that is how I got to be a good rider, is just by riding and making mistakes and messing up. And I think that there is always this feeling, I even feel it, I'm like, gosh, if Stephen Peters had Harvey, imagine how good he would be doing. He would probably be in the Olympics, but then I wouldn't be learning from him. So I don't know.
Right. How do you improve if you're not, I mean, if you want to learn how to ride.
Yeah.
And so, who was it? that was talking about all the horses that could be Grand Prix horses that don't make it because of the riding? Who was that? Do you remember that? Some guy who was giving a lecture.
I don't know. I feel.
But whatever. I just want to ride my horse.
Yeah. So I feel a lot of you guys say, I'm riding mine and getting help since I have figured things out. No trainers here, but that's why I do strides. Awesome, Paula. The horse doesn't care. Ride it and learn. There's always another horse to ride. Yeah. I mean, I think that there's a balance. I think if you have a really good trainer that can help you along the way and like get on your horse and help you feel some different things and like, you can kind of go up together. I think that's great. And then I do think that there's a time and a place, like if you buy a really high caliber young horse that has that Olympic potential, then maybe at that point you put it like with a really good up and coming trainer and you sponsor that person. But then that's like a different thing.
But that's just a different kind of party.
Right.
Right. If someone realizes, okay, this horse can do so much more than I'm going to do, and I want it to go to its potential, that's a whole other mindset. That's just a different place.
Yeah. And I do think it's important, like training for your horses is very important. And it's particularly important if it's a safety issue. So if your horse is unsafe for you to ride, if you are afraid to ride your horse, that's a different thing.
That is a completely different thing. If someone has gotten a horse that is so beyond their capabilities, that's a dangerous situation. Nobody learns how to drive in a Ferrari. I mean, you just don't do it.
Yeah.
Because you can get yourself seriously hurt. And so those super talented horses with those great gaits and everything
are very hard to ride.
They're difficult to ride.
Yeah.
They're difficult to ride.
Yeah. So I think that the best
that's a whole other level of.
Right. But I mean, the best advice is if you want to be the one riding your horse all the time and you want to go through that journey with him
and make the partnership and the bond, you have to get a horse that's appropriate for you.
Yes. And then you also have to recognize that it probably won't reach its full potential and you have to be okay with that. Not that it's like, I don't know that it won't reach its full potential, but it has a different purpose to life. Like if you put a horse in training with an Olympic rider, then the purpose is like, let's go to the Olympics. If you're riding your horse every day, then the purpose is, this is my horse and I want to enjoy it and develop a partnership with it.
Yeah.
So
it's a friend at that point. I mean, it's your horse.
Yeah. I mean, I don't think that there is a right and wrong
to it.
There's
not a right or a wrong. It's whatever you want, and that's great.
We used to go to this barn in Germany and look when we were trying horses, and there was a big mural on the wall, and it said in German, the only way to get better at riding is riding.
Yeah.
That's such a good quote because it's true. Like if you're not in the saddle, if you're not
it's just not going to happen. And if it's a great horse or a bad horse or an average horse or a spooky horse or a dead calm horse, you just got to ride.
Yeah.
They all teach you something.
So anyways, interesting topic, but I definitely felt like, in that moment, I was like, gosh, that's such a hard position to put, I think, someone in. So anyways, other updates, let's see, 30 days to round. So Sunday, final videos are due. Are you ready to watch a bunch of before and after videos?
Oh, we're going to do that. We're going to vote.
Yes, we are going to be selecting the
top 5. How many are
there? We don't know yet. Hundreds, I'm sure.
Hundreds.
So it's always like a movie marathon when we are finishing up a challenge and we pull up the side by side. So like the before and after. And then watch them and then try to grade like how much improvement they've made, which I always enjoy it. I think it's really fun to see your horses and to see your arenas. And we have just such variety in our programs, as far as
different horses, different facilities,
different riders,
ages, everything.
Dressage for all.
That's pretty much the size of it. And it is inspiring to watch everybody do it and get better. That is just incredible.
Yeah. 30 Days to Round is always like one of the most amazing programs. So let me know if you're a round rider.
There you go. You've got
if you're in 30 Days to Round, put it in the chat.
Carl, how do you pronounce that?
Says Carly's says, now me and my pony have improved.
Yeah, that's the name of the game. And yeah. And we're a part of all that.
Yeah, which is awesome. We were debating about whether or not we should do 30 Days to Round again next year. But like everyone's like, yes, do it again. So let us know in the chat if you think we should do it again. Oh, next Thursday, we're going to be announcing the winners for 30 Days to Round. That is our task.
And what's the closing date?
The videos are due Sunday. So we have
4 days.
We have to have everyone picked on Wednesday. So we have like
3 days.
Yes.
Woohoo!
We'll be watching a lot of movies this weekend. So let's see. Okay, we have a bunch of round riders here. Okay, we have a few questions to answer. I know I've been going on and on because we only have 3 questions. First question is from Ailey. Training for extended gaits versus medium gaits. What changes in the aids?
I don't really know that much changes in the aids.
So medium trot versus extended trot, I don't really even think of it that differently. I just think about riding more forward in balance.
Yeah, and I think that the level of collection that you can get will show the difference.
For the extended gaits, I think about letting the frame get a little bit more open and going for it a little bit more. For the medium, I think of keeping a little bit more collection, but it's not like the aids are that different.
No, you get to if you get more collection, then you can show more. Yeah. And then it's in your extended, it's easier to keep collection in your extension.
Okay, next question is from Heather.
Because of the training.
This is a very general question. Tips for being a more effective rider.
We already know. Accuracy.
How do you ride accurately?
Look where you're going.
What if your horse doesn't go where you're looking?
You might have to become a little more convincing with your aid.
How would you become more convincing with your aid?
You just make him look where he's going and send him there with your legs. You can't, you're not steering your horse to the point. You maneuver his forehead so that the forehead faces the mark, and then you drive them forward with your driving aids so that the hind legs step towards the mark. You make them look there, but then you've got to drive them there.
It's a good suggestion. How do you, what if your horse isn't listening to your legs? Like, what if you're kicking every stride and your horse just isn't listening?
You have to rehearse the leg aid. And so you stop and you make the horse go from a quiet leg aid. And if the horse doesn't go from the quiet leg aid, that's what the auxiliary aids are for. There's the spur and the whip, because the horse can feel a fly. So if you're up there banging away at your leg, you've taught your horse to be dull and numb. So you've got to make it more sensitive.
Okay. Other tips for being an effective rider, I think working on having an independent seat.
Right. That way you can use your legs and your hands, because if you don't have an independent seat, now you're hanging on your horse to stay in the saddle. And then your hands can't do their job because they're busy holding you in the saddle. So the independent seat is paramount. You can't ride if you don't have one, because your seat and your legs and your hands will be doing jobs that they shouldn't be doing. I
think that riding transitions is also helpful for becoming a more effective rider.
It'll work on your seat. And it'll get your horse off your leg aids.
I also think riding more, right? Like what we went back to.
Right, because
you get better at riding by riding.
There has to be a comfort and an ease when you're in the saddle. And that comes from time and miles, right? So if you're comfortable in the saddle, you can take a breath and go, I'm going to use my rein. I'm going to use my leg. If you got one look, oh my God, I'm on the horse. There's just, that goes away in time. And so when your horse is spooky, and let's say your horse spooks a lot, eventually you're just going to be like, yeah, the horse spooks a lot. I don't care. I turn his head and off we go. You get used to it.
Okay. Next question is from Emma. How do you get a horse listening to the inside leg under saddle? The horse in question is a lesson horse, so I don't have access to trail rides, nor do I have any say in saddle fit. Unfortunately, I cannot do much groundwork since all the arenas are in use.
Yeah, that's a whole other issue with lesson horses, because those horses get ridden by a variety of riders with varying degrees of skill. Generally not a lot, because they're school horses, and so those horses have had to tune out a lot of things because riders are in the beginning. They move around in the saddle a lot. They move their hands around a lot. Their legs are moving around. What is it called? Neural fatigue, right? And so those horses, just as a matter of keeping their sanity, tune all of that out because it's just too much. And so lesson horses, it's not really fair to say I'm going to go get this horse more sensitive on the aid, because 5 more riders aren't going to be able to do that. And they're going to be bouncing around in the saddle. And so then that horse has to learn to not listen to all of that.
That's true. But I also think that if you get on a lesson horse, you can make it more sensitive and get it better on the aids quickly.
Yes, I could.
Because of the way that you use your aid. So
yes,
for example, if I get on a lesson horse, because I've ridden a lot and I have a pretty good seat and my aids are independent, I can be like, hey, bump, bump, bump with that inside leg. Like, hey, get off my inside leg, pet the horse, repeat it a few times. So I think that it's about, if your horse is falling against your inside leg, number one is being effective with your leg. So ask nicely and then make a big reaction, get them to react and then pet them. And then the other thing is, trying to fix it sooner. Don't wait until it's drifting all the way to the center line. You have to fix it when it comes 2 inches off of the rail.
And your aids are probably going to be more than you think they need to be.
But then you have to do less after you
get the reaction. To get the reaction, it's going to take a bit more, but then you have to be super quick to the reward.
Yeah. And that's where, as you ride more, as you become a more sophisticated rider, you're able to vary the levels of your aids where, you think about, okay, most of the time you want to be pretty passive. Then you give a soft aid. If the soft aid doesn't work, then you give this big aid and then you go back to being passive.
Right.
When you're first learning how to ride, you're just praying that you don't fall off, right? And you don't have enough coordination to give these different series of aids. It's kind of a good analogy. I like it.
That was good.
I'm glad I impressed you. Let me know if I impressed anyone else. All right, a couple questions here. Let's see. Can you give me some more specifics on the do's and don'ts to do with a spooky horse? Head down, not pulling back, pushing them forward. This is a great topic, especially what to do on the trail. Spooky horse. It depends a little bit on your horse. But in general, head down is better.
Head down is better.
Because if their head is up, they're looking around for things to spook at.
But if you're grabbing so strong and trying to supple so hard to get their head down, that now you become part of the problem instead of part of the solution. An elastic contact and get away from the scary thing.
Yes.
In the most controlled way that you can, get away from the scary thing.
I also think when you're on the trail, you can do some little turns, you can do some little
zigzag, right? And you can work your way around it, show it to them from another side if there's room on the trail. But if the horse is now actually spooked, right? And now you've got 1,500 pounds of 30 miles an hour. Mark Twain, if they're running you out of town, get out in front and make it look like a parade. There's a little bit of, I meant to do that, right? You keep your position, shoulders back, hands down, and ride it. When the horse calms down again and has a brain, then you can start to do something. You have to understand that a spook is a panic, right? So now there's adrenaline and all those chemicals pumped into that horse's body, and it's telling it to run. It doesn't have a brain at that moment. You can't just be like, oh, well, I'm going to make Piaffe now.
Okay, that's the male version of how to handle a spook. Who here wants to hear the female version of how to handle a spook?
All right, go ahead. Let's see.
So I would prefer to prevent getting onto that runaway, which I agree. Like once your horse is spooked and running away, you have to just kind of go with him until you can settle him down and bend them again. But I would prefer not to have to go there. I guess you could say I'm a chicken. But so a couple of things that I would recommend is number one is, do your groundwork. That's always important. Teach your horse to bend, teach your horse to put their head down from the ground. I'm a big fan of groundwork. Then the other thing, by the way, come to my groundwork webinar, November 3rd. The other thing is like start in your arena, right? And make sure that you can get your horse to relax and bend and put their head down and turn and all of those things in the arena before you go out on the trail. Going out on the trail, if you can get a quiet horse to go with you, like a calm older horse,
yes, that
will really help your horse to settle and like relax and calm down. And then like if, for example, if I know that my horse is going to be scared of something, either I will kind of try to bend them and yield them past it, or like in the arena, give myself like a little bit more distance.
Right, but that's like an object there, right? But what happens when the trash truck makes a turn and turns on the blinking lights and makes the great big crashing sound? It's not there all the time.
That's true.
Boom, there's this big noise and the horse is just off to the races.
Yeah, that's different.
That you have to go with.
But I also think that there's an energy level before a spook happens. And we all know that. Like it's the end of your ride. You've ridden your horse 5 days in a row. It's super hot. Your horse is really relaxed and calm. They're probably not going to be as spooky to the trash can.
Right. Like the girl was saying, we've got fall coming. The days are going to get cooler. They're going to be a little sparkier, except for the people in the
So part of it is being smart and knowing what you can handle. Like if you're like Herman and you're like, all right, great, let's go after the races, no problem, then go for it. But you need to be able to handle what your horse gives you. So if you're more timid and you don't want to have to ride through a bolt, then maybe you do groundwork and stay in the arena on that day.
Right.
Like you
just avoid the problem.
Yeah. You don't want to overexpose yourself and your horse. So hopefully that
was somewhat helpful.
Yes. Hopefully that's somewhat helpful. All right, everyone. Happy Thursday. We will be announcing winners 30 days round winners, giving away $10,000. So that's always fun. Some people are going to be feeling very rich next Thursday night. Don't forget to get your videos in. And
that's about it. Yes. Okay. And then if you didn't like anything I said, then don't do that.